Do you remember the gospel passage in which the apostles James and John asked to be seated at Jesus' right and left hand on his day of glory? And Jesus replied, "Can you drink from the cup I am going to drink?" Of course, at the time, the two brothers had no clue as to what all this cup would include. But in today's reading, we see with vivid clarity what all was meant when he said, "this cup." This cup, he says, is the blood of the covenant, which will be shed on behalf of many for the forgiveness of sins. And this cup was to be fully drained in the agony in the garden, the scourging and the crucifixion, and his painful, self-giving death that he suffered on the cross. In the scriptures, the cup is often used as a symbol of a person's life. We sometimes hear it called the cup of life or the cup of blessings, and in it contain all those things that make up a person's life. And when we drink from that cup, we are participating in the joys and the sorrows that Providence has prepared for us. But I think a lot of times we bring that cup up to drink of it without really knowing everything there is in it. I think as people, sometimes in our thirst, we just grab the cup and want to gulp down whatever there is in it without really looking to see what the cup contains. Like when you ask a child if they want to spend a few days at the beach. Yes, they are all in because they anticipate the water, the sand, and the fun. But included in that cup is a long, dry car ride in the car, perhaps the sting of a man of war and the pain of too much sun. And we don't do a whole lot better as we get older. When we begin a new job, we always measure the advantages that this new opportunity may have to offer, but rarely do we fully understand the disadvantages until we actually experience them, like longer hours, greater stress, jealous and uncooperative co-workers. Even in an action as important as a marriage, we sometimes lift the cup to our lips without fully comprehending the difficulties, the sicknesses, and the heartaches until we actually have to go through them. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus knew full well all the bitterness and agony his cup contained, so much so that even he found it hard to bring to his lips. "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." Yet, in his total reliance on the goodness of his Father, he was able to add the words, "But your will be done." Our lives aren't always elixirs of joy either, are they? When we first take our cup, we are so anxious to drink of it. Life is so rich with promise. But as we begin to taste it, we find that there is much bitterness there, along with the sweetness. And we begin to ask ourselves questions like, do I really want to drink from this cup? Can I really empty it to its dregs? Why should I drink it when it's so full of bitterness, pain, and sorrow? Why can't I just spit it out the bad parts and live a life that maximizes pleasures and minimizes pain? But that's not our calling, is it? As Christians, we are called to drink of our cup fully. Can you imagine how hard it must have been for Jesus' mother and her friend Mary Magdalene to watch Jesus' agonizing walk up the hill of Calvary? How desperately they wished they could fix it for him. But there was no fixing to be done. In our own lives, there are many times we can find ways to overcome the difficulties that are set in our past, ways to compensate for our losses or alleviate our pain. Take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning, that kind of thing. But there are those occasions when there is no fixing it, no way to alleviate or avoid the pain. A parent who has died, a child who is permanently impaired, a fatal disease for which there is no cure. And yet, isn't it true, when we are able to love and to care for those in our lives that are so helpless, we end up receiving much more than what we give. And the relationship we have with them goes so much deeper than a relationship based on common interests and pleasures. It's a relationship based on love. And it's the bond of love forged in the crucible of shared suffering that makes the joys of living stronger than the despair of death. He emptied himself, coming in human likeness, and he humbled himself, becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. Jesus chose to invest himself fully into the joys and sorrows of human existence. He drank of his cup to the very last drop, accepting even the bitterest of taste. But in so doing, he transformed the ugliness of his execution into the beauty of the resurrection and eternal salvation. In these last few days of Lent, he invites us to place ourselves in spirit beside him as he makes his tortuous way up the hill of Calvary, to unite our pains and our sorrows with his, and to offer him both our deepest compassion and our utmost gratitude. For it is his willingness to share completely in the suffering of this life that enables us to share in the joys of the resurrection and union with him in the next.